Today we're going to figure out how to infuse what makes you awesome into your social profiles. We're talking about finding your superpowers. Superpowers? You might think, Brett, what are you talking about superpowers? Guess what? You have superpowers. I have superpowers. We all have superpowers. Now, what are those superpowers? These are the things that are beyond the basics. So when someone chooses to use you for business and then they go, wow, you did an awesome job, what was it that they liked? That's what we want to figure out. Now, there are some baseline items like you need to know your products. You got to be somewhat competent in the space of insurance, right? More than somewhat. You need to have good customer service. You need to be conscientious and responsive. All of those things are not your superpowers. Those are the baseline. Those are the things that you have to do well. It's the things that you do beyond that. That's your awesome sauce. That's your unique selling proposition. So today what we want to talk about is how can you figure out what your superpowers are so that way we can reverse engineer them and we can infuse them into your social profile. So on top of all the awesome stuff you've done, once we know your superpowers, we can actually make it even better. And that's what we're going to do today. So I'm really excited. Let's get started. So first off, strike a pose. Right, whatever your I learned this from Tony Robbins. It's the superhero pose, and I do it every day. Right, I hold it for at least 30 to 90 seconds, and I say to myself, "I'm the man." Right? And you're like, and you, those of you who know me, you're like, Brett, you're not the man. Okay, but in my own little universe, I'm the man. No, the truth is, there are people who like you. There are people that want to do work with you. There are people who are just engineered to resonate with who you are. So the question is, when it comes to your favorite clients and the clients that you're their favorite, what is it about you that brought them to you? Why do they stick around? If we can reverse engineer this, if we can figure out what makes you awesome, and then we thread it into your social profile to create some more transparency so these employees of LinkedIn and Facebook are actually transparent and emoting who you are online, Now we're getting somewhere. Now we're cooking. There are a couple of quotes that I want to share with you just to get us in the frame of mind. And they both come from one of my favorite authors. She's actually a shame researcher out of Texas. Her name is Brene Brown. If you haven't ever discovered her, honestly, probably one of the coolest things I can share with you is just her name. She's wonderful. I used to joke if she had a church, I would be going to it because she's just full of insight. I don't know. It's just great. She's basically studied why certain things make us go into the fetal position and why some people are resilient. We're drawn toward people that are vulnerable and authentic. We just naturally are, but we're scared to death to be that way ourselves. And so a couple quotes from her. Honestly, if you could just stop the video, go read like 2 or 3 of her books and then come back, that would be amazing. And I recommend that. But I got a couple quotes just to tide you over until you get a chance to do that. So here's the first one. Authenticity is a collection of choices that we have to make every day. It's about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest, the choice to let our true selves be seen. Now, why do I share that quote? I like this quote because we're kind of scared to share ourselves online. In real life, we do it pretty well, but when we're in LinkedIn, we kind of hide down, right? Even in Facebook, many of us, we're lurkers. We're just checking stuff out. And it's very scary for us to actually be authentic. The truth is we're drawn to people who are authentic, to people who are resilient. And one of the things that I find is very helpful in the space of social media is when you're trying to build relationships with people, it's just like in real life. It's just you're now doing it through this medium called social media. But you're doing the same things. You're being real. You're showing up. You're being transparent and letting people see who you really are. This is scary. For me, probably for you. It's scary to show up, right? Because we don't want to be vulnerable. But here's what's interesting, and this is the second quote by Brene here. The truth is that we're actually drawn to people who are real and down to earth. We love authenticity, and we know that life is messy and imperfect. Okay, we're okay with this in other people. We don't expect perfection from other people, but we expect ourselves, right? No mistakes, gotta be awesome. Are you authentic? Are you willing to be authentic? It's hard. It's hard I will tell you, I've taught thousands, well, I don't know about thousands. Yeah, probably at least 1,000, hundreds of workshops and webinars. And guess what? it does get a little bit easier, but we all know this right here, this is a face that's been made for radio, right? I am no Jimmy Fallon, no Alec Baldwin. I am not the guy, right? But I got to show up. I got to be who I am, and I got to be comfortable with that. And when it comes to truly using social media, my question is, does your personality flow into your profile, especially LinkedIn and Facebook? Do I feel the real you? I don't even want to tell you how many times I've shot these videos. I mean, I'm doing it over and over and over again because it's like, oh, I want to be real. I don't want to just read from a script. But at the same time, I watch them back and I think, Brett, man, you're pretty painful to look at. Like, this is hurting me. And I don't want you to feel that way. And maybe you don't. But we got to somehow step into this space of fear and be authentic. And we've got to say, you know what? I'm going to look inside. I'm going to figure out what makes me awesome. And I'm going to be willing to own that and to share my superpowers online. And to do that, I've created a tool. I call it a worksheet here, but it's really a tool. It's on how to find your superpowers. So we're going to walk through this one together. And what you're going to do is I'm going to share a little bit, and then you're going to pause and you're going to answer the question. And by the time we're done with this, my hope is that you will have a strong sense of what it is that you uniquely bring. We talk about your unique selling proposition or your mission statement. What is it that you bring to the table? And then how can we infuse that into your social media? That's what we're talking about. So let's go ahead and look at this. Looking at number one, actually the title here, what are your superpowers? What's your awesome sauce? Why do people blank you? Why do they like you? Why do they refer you? Why do they trust you? Why do they give you your business? You know, a lot of words you can put in there, but what is it that draws people to you? So number one, list the 3 top things that make you stand out from your competition. I thought about this, and for myself, really, I'm pretty easygoing and present. With my trainings, a lot of the times when I've worked with other people, they have this exact itinerary they're going to go down, and it's a little different in the vacuum of creating a video in a room like this. But when I'm actually in front of people, sometimes we go over here, sometimes we go over there, but I'm constantly, and this is something I've really practiced, is to listen to my audience and find out what is it that they're struggling with, what are their questions, and not ignore them. And if we have to go a little sideways from what I had on my little agenda, I would much rather serve you. And so I'm pretty easygoing, and I try to be as present as I can. In fact, I won't get into religion or anything, but I'm a really big fan of a guy named Michael Singer, and I don't think he'd consider himself a religionist, but he wrote a book called The Untethered Soul, and I just, I don't really hug trees or anything, but I just love his process for meditation and becoming conscious and sitting in the seat of your consciousness and observing things. And I try to do that when I'm teaching. I try to get out of my head a little bit and observe as well as share. So these are things that, for me, I think have helped me connect with other people. And that's enough for me. Let's go ahead and pause the video. I want you to think about this. What are the top 3 things that make you stand out from your competition? Let's go on to question number 2. List 3 specific skills you've developed that make you successful at what you do. And the thing that I differ here is, number 1, I think, is kind of who you are, right? There are some things that it's just who you are. It's built in your DNA. Number 2 is a little bit about skills. What are the things that you've really honed in? What is it that you spent your time doing? Where did you get your 10,000 hours put in so you can actually be masterful at something? So here's what I wrote for me. I am bilingual. Not that I speak another language other than English, I speak technology. So I'm very adept at how to use a computer and how to use the internet. And I took computer programming classes in college and wrote HTML. I used to teach HTML, and I've spent a ton of time in social media. So for me, I think I truly am a good example of a digital immigrant, meaning I'm not from this space, right? I didn't grow up with this technology, but I've just spent so much time using it that it's become a good second language to me. And that's good because that way I can kind of jump back and forth between those that are foreign to this stuff and those that are really adept. Okay, the other two things I wrote was I'm a teacher. I find that learning is enjoyable. I'm confident. I have a deep working knowledge of social selling. And I am confident because I just have spent years. I would say I started this journey in about 2008 to really use social media. Before that, it was more like website optimization, building websites. But really about 2008, 2009 is when I really just put the gas on and said, I want to understand the 80-20 of social media. Like, what is the 20% of effort that gives salespeople a result in using social media? And I've just been focusing on that. I remember one of my bosses when I worked for one of the big carriers would be like, Brett, every time you teach a workshop, you come home and then you tweak it a little bit. And then it's never the same. It's always different. And I think you should just use the same one for like 6 months and then do another one. And I just remember saying, I can't not, because every time I teach it, I get feedback from different people, and it was always fine tuning. And so I think that's one of the things that I'm not lazy when it comes to delivering this stuff. I'm just as much of a student as anyone because I want to understand how do we use social media to develop relationships. I think that's fascinating. So the question is for you as an insurance producer or as an agency owner or whatever your role is, what do you bring to the table based on your skills? What skills have you honed that have allowed you to be unique? What are your super skills? Okay, I like this one. Question number 3. Let's go ahead and do this one. List 3 things in your business that make you the happiest and that you would never give up. So what are some of the things that you would do that you just don't want to give up, right? So this reminds me of the book E-Myth. Have you ever read The Entrepreneurial Myth? Why most small businesses fail and what to do about it. It says most people are having a entrepreneurial seizure, right? You're a technician having an entrepreneurial seizure. And it's a story of a woman who bakes pies, right? She wants to bake her pies. She loves baking pies, but now she's got to run the business. And running the business, it's really hard for her to let go of baking the pies. I think of that when I think of this. So here's mine. You can see mine. Number 1, learning from prospects, clients, and industry leaders. No joke. I love to see what you guys are doing. I can be quite honest. Yes, I've spent a lot of time reading books and taking training and seeing what's happening in this space, but the thing that I like the most is I just go out with agents. The thing I missed most, probably the thing I missed most from being an employee of the carrier was when I got to go on drive-alongs with the territory managers, because I could just go into your office. I've been in offices all over the nation to say, what is the problem? You know, what in the space of social and web, how do we understand what you're feeling? And then from that, I've been able to see what the problems are. And the other thing that I love about it is seeing what you guys do that's awesome. I won't lie. I steal everything. I don't know if I should say steal. I learn and I emulate everything. What I like to do is go out and see there are some innovative agents out there. You guys are killing it. You're crushing it. You're doing these awesome things. You're coming up with ideas I never would have thought of. And you're implementing them, and I get to meet with you and you share them with me, and I love it. I love it. And so a lot of the things that I share with you are actually the best practices that I haven't come up with in a scholarly setting. It's just what you guys are already doing in the field that works. I love that. Teaching, sharing, love it when a concept clicks. Developing training, ARCS, ADDIE, Lean, Doc Design. Okay, I kind of talked about those things already. I do. I don't know why. It just fills my soul with energy when I can share the cool stuff I've discovered. And then when I see it click and you get it and you're like, hey, I will tell you this. I remember a lot of the workshops, there was always, especially early on, I would say in like 2012, 13-ish, there's always a guy in the back, his arms folded, right? He's about 55 or 60, and he's sitting there, and I'm teaching, you know, like this is what Web 2.0 is, this is what social media is, these are the things that are evolving, this is where we're moving, and they just have their arms folded, you know, and I remember once it clicked for me what's going on here, and what it was they wanted an excuse. They you know, they're effectively saying, look, I'm here to convince myself that this is a bunch of hooey, that I don't have to worry about it, and I can go back to what I've always done. And I remember probably more than I should have, I just wanted to reach those people. In fact, I often say the things that I'm talking about really work best for people who are over 40, who are digital immigrants, because the natives, I'm not so worried about them, right? And they're figuring stuff out. They both basically need to learn sales, and they need to learn, how to talk to people. But those of us who are older, we know sales, we know how to talk to people. What we don't know is how to use the technology. And it was always so fun for me when I was teaching a workshop, and there'd be during a break, maybe halfway through or 2/3 through, this person, and I never saw a woman. I don't want to be sexist or anything, but it seemed like it was always the men. And they would come up to me, like the women were always more open, I guess is what I'm saying. They were, I shouldn't even judge that. What do I know? I can't observe everything. But I never really remember a woman folding her arms being like, oh, this is crap. But I remember men doing that a lot. And then 2/3 of the way through the experience, they would come up to me and they'd say, Brad, I get it. Like, I caught the vision. I understand what's going on here. It's not about, showing what crappy food I had for lunch on Twitter. And it's not about stalking people. And they catch the vision. And that was the thing that made me most excited. I loved it. It energized me so much. In fact, my wife would be like, you need to go on a trip. You need to go see your people because you're starting to like run down on your energy. I love to learn from you guys. Okay, so that was number 3 for me. So go ahead and pause the video and let's write down, what's the question here? 3 things in your business that make you the happiest and that you would never give up. What are some of those things for you? I'm really curious to find out what these things are. In fact, in the social post that you put on the group after this, I really would love for you to actually share some of those things in here, because I'd like to learn from you. Like I said, I'd like to see what are the things that you care most about. Okay, I'll quit talking, pause the video, go ahead and write those things down, and then we'll go on to question 4. All right, number 4. Are you ready for number 4? Here's number 4. Write down 2 or 3 stories that were turning points in your life, your epiphany moments. The truth is, we have these moments that happen that are powerful, and they're moments where we progress. They're often stories that we share with people as part of the experience of building relationships with them, or part of our sales process. So could you come up with a list of at least 3 of them? There's probably more. What are the things, right? These are the stories that your spouse is being like, oh yeah, I've heard this story 1,000 times, right? These are important stories, though. They're epiphanies. Write them down. What are some of mine? I'll just share a couple with you. When I was in college, I was a full commission salesperson. That's how I paid for all my college. And worked at Sears, sold furniture. And I remember once this young couple comes in and they buy $12,000 worth of bedroom furniture. In fact, by the time I was done selling them, they had actually spent about $50,000 on furniture for their house. They were just getting married and they wanted to furnish their house. And I remember because I don't know how, I'm just broken. I don't know how to keep people like acquaintance level. I kind of became friends with them a little bit. And so when it came time to deliver the furniture, I actually came to their house. They were like, come to my house, come see what we're doing. Well, long story short, turns out the parents had bought them the house. The parents had given them the money. And they were just from a whole different walk of life than I was ever used to, right? I was this poor kid from Idaho who was using student loans and just trying to get through school, working full time. Well, I learned that I can't sell out of my pockets. I remember that was a big deal for me, realizing like, you know what? Just because you haven't experienced something doesn't mean others haven't. And I learned to open my eyes a little bit. And that's helped me in a lot of ways. In fact, I can relate that to social media. I won't go too far on this one because I know this is about you, not just me. But it helped me to open my mind to technology as it changes, to not get stuck in my rut. Like I want to listen to a CD. My kids are always like, Dad, why do you want to listen to the whole CD? Like, just get the songs you want, make a playlist on Amazon Prime Music, and then listen to songs you want. I'm like, no. They're always like, Dad, you're downloading the entire album. Why are you doing that? I'm like, because that's the way we did it back in the day. Well, I've learned to adapt, and I'm trying to always adapt. Likewise, I've learned books can be my mentor. I didn't have any mentors growing up, right? I mean, I had my father, and he was a wonderful mentor for the things that he knew. But when it came to doing a lot of the stuff that was out of his circle, I didn't have anyone to tell me what that was. And I found that I could read books. And so Robert Kiyosaki and E-Myth, right? If you learn about the entrepreneurial myth by Michael Gerber, and Outliers, right? All those, I could tell you stories from all of those books that were epiphanies for me that helped me take things to the next level. And the last one is more applicable to what we're talking about. And that was, I remember it was about 2009. The real estate market had crashed. I had been really invested in real estate and it was going down. Our Granite franchise was going under. I had these high-end houses that I was remodeling and land I was developing, and it was just going ugly. And I started creating a kind of bolstering up my website business. And that's when I really discovered social media. And I remember thinking, if I read Outliers and I was like, if I could get on the front end of this, then I think, there could be some opportunities. And so I remember reading 50 books and spending hours on the internet and trying to figure all this stuff out. And it was about that time that I really spent some time thinking about the 80-20 rule, or the Pareto principle. And it dawned on me that the Pareto principle must apply to social media. There must be like a certain concrete effort or specific task that you could do, like 20% of the task that would make 80% of the return. Because the Pareto principle, right, it applies to everything. It applies to economics, to gardening, right? You plant a bunch of peas. The truth is 20% of your pea plants will produce 80% of your pea pods. Like, it's just this crazy rule. And that became my vision. And I spent years, literally years, just fine-tuning, like, what are those specific things? And that's, a lot of this stuff is from the results of that effort. Okay. Oh, I get excited when I'm talking about this stuff. But like I say, I know this isn't about me, this is about you. So it's fun to listen to other people, but let's think inwardly, dig deep inside. What is it? What are some of those turning points in your life? What are your epiphany moments? What are those moments that you said, what, I just can't take anymore, or you broke through that glass ceiling? Let's write some of those down. Okay, I'm going to pause the video. This one may take more time than what you can just do in a few seconds, but just jot down like the first 5 things or 3 things that comes to mind. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? No one's looking over your shoulder. You're not going to hand this in. I'm not going to grade you on this. This is for you just to get your brain on paper. What are some of the big events in my life that were turning points? So I'm going to pause the video, or you pause the video. I'll wait here for a second. Okay, so now we are at number 5. So number 5, based on your answers above, list your top 3 to 5 strengths, skills, or personality traits. And these are your superpowers. So if we can kind of squish all these things together and try to figure out what's the commonality here, let's see what we come up with. I'll share again what I have written for myself. And it's kind of hard to say some of these things. Like, I'll share with you, I believe that I'm a highly effective trainer. I don't say that like, hey, I'm so good, but I do think that I can hold my own. I think that if I look at all the reviews I've gotten from all the workshops and all the people that I've helped, I can own that. I feel pretty good about that. Genuinely care about students' success. I do. I was actually talking to a mentor the other day, and he said, Brett, with this new business you're creating, what's your goals? What's your revenue goals? I was like, I don't know that I have revenue goals. What I have is student execution goals. Like, for me, I know all of these agents and businesses that I've worked with in the last 10 years, and I felt like I was only ever giving them the tip of the iceberg. And really what I want to see is, I want to see them take it to the next level. I want them to execute at the level I know they could. And yes, I'll probably pick up a few clients where I just do it for them. But the main thing is through this whole challenge experience, I want you to move forward. I do care. My love for learning is infectious. I have observed this. I don't say, oh, I'm so infectious, right? I just have observed that over time, I get excited about things and it gets other people excited. I remember once when I was doing real estate, and I had a friend, and we were actually deep sea fishing out in the Pacific Northwest. And I was just excited. I was sharing about, I was doing this boundary line adjustment, and I bought all this acreage, and I was moving some things around, and I was going to be able, in fact, I made really good money on that deal. I have to thank a guy named Dean Graciosi for that one. I had bought this little online training thing that he had, and he taught me about boundary line adjustments. And anyways, long story short, I was excited and I'd made over $500,000 on this deal, and it was really awesome. my friend got so excited. He was like, holy cow. And he was like, I have 20 acres and I actually, or maybe it was 10 acres. I can't remember exactly how much it was, but he had a bunch of land and he was like, I could do that too. And I remember telling him like, don't you live my dream. You live your own dream. And I remember we were talking about like, what's your dream? And his dream was to own his own chiropractor office. He was a chiropractor. He wanted to own his own office. And it was so fun to watch that he went out and he did it. And before long, he used that money and he bought his own office. And just an example, I don't know. I like to hang out with people that are excited about things, and I get excited about things. And so I hope that my excitement for this stuff and my confidence that you can figure this out will rub off on you. Okay, so pause the video, and then I want you to see if you can kind of summarize this stuff into a couple of really clear points. And this is important because we're going to be using this stuff in your social profile here in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you again, pause the video. Okay, so number 6. We're ready for number 6? This one's a little subjective, and I just need you to run with it in any way that makes sense. What it says is review your LinkedIn profile and update it to better showcase your superpowers. Okay, now the best way that you can do this, if you remember in day 4 and in day 5, you had 2 tools or 2 worksheets that gave you a list of all the different things you need to do, the scorecards. So one of the easiest ways to do this is with your mind conscious of what your superpowers are, start looking at the items on this and say, okay, with my background photo, could I change it in such a way that better pictures what my superpowers are? Or same thing, especially with like the about section. Reread your about section. Is it showcasing your superpowers? And if not, can you go in there and make some changes? Again, this is kind of subjective. I'm not going to tell you exactly what to write sentence by sentence. What you know is what it is about you that people are attracted to. And just like me saying I'm a highly effective trainer, it feels weird. It feels weird to write in these things that are maybe some of our strengths. But it's so important that we do. And you can do it with, a slice of humility, but do it in such a way that it's easier for someone who doesn't know you, who's checking you out, to be able to get a sense of what you're about. Often our recommendations, we can do that. We can get feedback from, like when we go over here into recommendations and endorsements and things like that, you can actually take some of the nice things that people have said about you and you can put them into, for example, maybe, I felt grateful about this comment a recent new client said about me, and then you put it in quotes and you put that in your about section. Things like that are going to allow you to let people see what you're all about. That's what this whole day is about, is do you know why people are attracted to you? Do you know what it is about you that makes you a little more special? And if we can think about those things, we can infuse them into our social media, not just the static things, but you'll also be using these in the posts that you create in such a way that people can see what your strengths are. I believe in leaning in on strengths. I know a lot of people believe like figure out what you're bad at and go try to fix it. I'm like, no, just pay for someone to fix those things or do those things. You focus on what you're awesome at and share those things in the social media. Be transparent about that. That's what we want to do here. Okay, that's it. That's what we got for today. So, things got a little trickier today. Things got a little harder. But I know that you can do it. I know that you can be honest with yourself, get someone who you really trust to share these things with you, and let's see if we can come up with a clear statement about your unique selling proposition. What is it about you that's awesome? We're going to go into this more tomorrow. But for today, it's just about you. What is your superpower? Tomorrow, we're going to talk about actually some cool stuff about identifying your ideal client. So what I want to ask you to do is, before we're all done, go into the boss community, just like I say every day, and share a comment, share a post, create just a quick message that lets me know how you're feeling about this. And like I said earlier, it would be awesome if you could actually share some of the things that you discovered or some of the things you already knew about yourself that you've been fine-tuning in the phrasing of it. Maybe you've updated your headline tag and you want to say, hey, based on this, I updated my headline tag in LinkedIn and here's what it is now. Or, hey, here's a link to my LinkedIn profile. Tell me what you guys think. I updated the About section based on, whatever these things are. Look to the group, look to all of us. I want to invite you to, and that's why I brought up Brene Brown in the beginning, as I want to just beg you to open up a little, to be vulnerable, to put it out there. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I was reading the other day in this book called Barking Up the Wrong Tree. I'll have to look for the data on it, but it was talking about how we completely underestimate the support and the openness that other people have for us. We're afraid to share. We're afraid people are going to judge us, things like that. It's all us. It's not them.
So here's the quote that I was looking for. There's no need to be afraid of networking. The truth is we often underestimate by as much as 50% how much others are willing to help us when asked. Being mistrustful or assuming others are selfish can be self-fulfilling prophecies. Remember, the rule of thumb is simple when making friends. Be socially optimistic. Assume other people will like you, and they probably will.
So, in the spirit of Brene Brown, go watch one of her TED Talks if you need to get in the spirit of vulnerability. And let's be honest with ourselves, and let's see if we can find ways to share that with the world via our social media. That's it for today. Good luck, leave your post, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Well, I don't know if that was great, but it's there.